Hello, and welcome to the first program in the new film club series. Tonight's films, both being shown for the first time on television, were made by Francis Ford Coppola. The director of the Godfather epics, Apocalypse Now and One from the Heart, he remains an inspiration, not just as a great filmmaker and unrepentant beatnik, but also for his extraordinary attempt to take on the system and establish a new kind of cinema in Hollywood with his ill-fated Zoetrope studio. It's fascinating to examine The Outsiders and Rumblefish, which we'll see tonight in that order, in relationship to each other and in terms of Coppola's career. Both films were made back-to-back in Oklahoma in 1982 on the rebound from the disastrous Zoetrope bankruptcy. Both based on novels by S.E. Hinton, they share an anarchic, alienated, existential darkness which would not be easily tolerated in Hollywood today. Their stories of disaffected and ill-fated youth provide a powerful metaphor for the failure of Coppola's own short-lived rebellion against the studio system which almost destroyed him. Written in 1967 by Susan Hinton, at the time a 15-year-old schoolgirl in Tulsa, The Outsiders tells a story of rival gangs from the wrong and right side of the tracks. Tulsa was and is an oil-affluent city where class ties are shaped by economic status rather than religion or race. The poor boys, known as greasers, are locked in a tragic conflict with kids from affluent backgrounds called Socs. Coppola saw it as an art film for kids. He wanted to make a movie, understandably in the light of what he'd just been through, not just about youth, but as he said, about belonging to a group of people with whom you made identification and where you felt real love. He rounded up his usual Zoetrope crew and instigated a major talent search, resulting in the extraordinary cast which reads today like a Brat Pack roll of honor. If hired together again in a movie now, Matt Dillon, Diane Lane, Tom Top Gun Cruise, Patrick Dirty Dancing Swayze, Emilio Repo Man Estevez, Rob About Last Night Lowe, Ralph Karate Kid Macchio, and C. Thomas Soulman Powell would cost almost twice as much as the overall budget of the film that launched them all. Coppola put up the actors playing greasers on the cramped third floor of the hotel, giving them a small per diem and scripts in thriftway binders. The Socs, on the other hand, were installed in the plush top floor, where they were treated royally by the hotel staff, given enough money to rent cars and buy steak for dinner, and presented with engraved, leather-bound scripts. Despite discriminating against the greasers in order to create a real friction between the two groups, Coppola's heart was clearly on the side of the underdogs. I wanted to take those young street rats and give them heroic proportions, he said. To achieve this heroic dimension, the film was shot in CinemaScope, using the dynamic, off-centered compositional style of Nick Ray. Even the central relationship between Ponyboy and Johnny, played by Howell and Macchio, echoes that of Jim and Plato in Rebel Without a Cause, and Coppola uses the same revolving camera to turn the world upside down. Although nominally set in the 1960s, the movie seems to resonate more with the iconography of the Hollywood 50s. The use of silhouetted exteriors and extreme animal close-ups recalls the eerie alienation effects of Lawton's Night of the Hunter. The offset, tilted angles remind you of Touch of Evil, and the luminous reds of Diane Lane's hair and the gleaming blue switchblades summon up the Metro, Warner, and Technicolors of the time. This stylization gives Ponyboy's narrative point of view the epic quality of a time remembered rather than documentary fact. The central imagery of the glorious Gone with the Wind sunsets creates the perfect metaphor for the film. Here gold is not a symbol of immutability, but rather of transience, whether it be the fading of a sunset or the passing of youth. At times, it's true, the visual poetry of the images becomes intrusively exquisite, and in some ways the film's Brat Pack lineup and homoerotic elements, which peaked in Top Gun, can be accused of condemning us to a decade of 501 jeans and Calvin Klein ads. I prefer to remember The Outsiders, despite its artificiality, for its sense of escape to things past, to some place without greasers or Socs, just plain ordinary people. An attitude that somehow subconsciously echoes Coppola's own retreat from Hollywood.